Hey everyone, Tom Garrubba of Echelon Risk Cyber, Director of Third-Party Risk Management Services. I want to give a quick shout out to Michael Stephen Ruse, who reached out to me and said, Tom, can you make some commentary with respect to continuous monitoring integration into your due diligence practices? So I'm very happy to do that here. Organizations that put continuous monitoring as part of their due diligence practices have reached the maturity of a third generation. Third generation TPRM practices takes continuous monitoring and uses it in some way, shape, or form to monitor at least their most critical vendors. Some organizations actually do this at the front end of net new vendors, bringing on a net new vendor, and do it as part of the RFP process. They might run certain cyber tools against those to make sure that they are comfortable handing over their data to these particular vendors. 90 to 95% of your continuous monitoring tools that are used in third-party risk practices are focused on the cyber sphere. Tools that I'm sure you're familiar with: Risk Recon, Pan Arrays, BitSight, Security Scorecard, Black Kite, just to name a few. However, as you start to expand and even start moving into the fourth generation, which is covering other aspects of risk management, you might start taking on additional tools. Tools like Supply Wisdom, which is covering much more, looking at things from an ESG perspective. Okay, you might be taking on other tools such as Rapid Ratings or LexisNexis or Moody's, Standard & Poor's, trying to monitor things from a financial perspective. You might even go back to some of the basics and use things like Google Alerts and just trying to see what you could feed in certain industries or certain vendors. So it's very important that as you grow your program and you want to mature into the next generation, you incorporate some form of continuous monitoring. Now, when we start talking about the cadence of doing continuous monitoring, it's very important that the cadence that you follow is based on the criticality and the risk tiering of the particular vendor. The thing you don't want to do is have a tool that can monitor 200 components and have it monitoring every single vendor that you have. You want to be able to take that tool and be able to find what you feel is most critical and build that into the risk tier of your particular vendor. So if you have a risk one vendor, a critical vendor, you might have to have in this case, 200 components that you want to follow and monitor. And if something goes off, some type of an alert, you have the ability to follow up directly with that particular vendor. If it's a lower tier vendor, medium tier vendor, or a lower risk tier vendor, you might want to back the amount that you're monitoring off and say, there might only be about 5 to 10 components, 20 components that I really, really need to focus going forward. So it's very important that you have a tiering system based on what you need to monitor. And it's going to expand my absolutely baseline to my medium risk to my higher risk. And then based on other attributes, maybe it's based on the location of where your data is, the location of the processing, maybe it's based on types of data, health information, credit card information, things of that nature. So it's very important that you incorporate those monitoring components into your program. Okay, so I think I covered a lot here, touched a little bit on everything here. Continuous monitoring is something that's really hot right now. And as I mentioned, if you're doing it in some way, shape, or form, congratulations, you're in the third generation of maturity within your program. And make sure you also have the resources to be able to monitor this too. I think it's also very important that you have that scoped out in your budget so you're able to present to management, how much do you do in terms of monitoring? How much do you do in terms of assessments? You want to make sure within your team you're able to find that right balance. That's so very important. So this is something I can go on and on and on, as I'm sure you figured out. Perhaps I could expand on this a little bit more. If there's something in particular that you want me to focus on with respect to continuous monitoring, please reach out. Be more than happy to address that. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next week on TPRM Tidbits. Stay safe all. Cheers.